So the news just broke. Joel Embiid suffered a right orbital fracture and a mild concussion in the series clinching Game 6 win last night in Toronto. He will be listed out, and there is no timetable for his return. That's fucking tough, nigga. That's fucking tough, bro. That's tough. That's tough. That's fucking tough, man. Damn, that's tough, bro. Because at that point, there's literally, and I do mean literally, there's absolutely no way that the Sixers can get by Miami. There is absolutely positively no way the Sixers can get by Miami. Bro, there's no fucking way, bro. There's no fucking way. Even Harden at his peak is not gonna be able to get them past that Miami team. That's tough. That's that's fucking tough, bro. What's even worse, and for those who don't know the play, I just pinned it at the top. That is the play where Embiid got injured last night. Bro, this shit fucked, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. This is a fucking mood killer because I was so prepared to watch this nigga Embiid trying to make his way to the conference finals. I thought it was going to be a very like entertaining conference finals between him and Giannis, but that is tough. That is tough. Again, at this point, I just don't see Philly making it. There's just no way. Man, there's no fucking way. There's literally, and I do mean literally, I don't think there's a single fucking way that they can get by the Sixers without Embiid, bro. I mean, that the Sixers can make it past Miami without Embiid. That's tough. That's tough. That's tough. That's fucking tough. Um, damn, injuries suck. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just signing off on the entire season already, but it definitely feels and seems that way. Uh, damn, bro, that's fucking tough. Let me fucking. I hate when my thing does it. I'm gonna try to bring some people up, bro, because this shit tough. This shit fucking finished, nigga. It's fucking finished, bro. This shit finished. This shit finished, bro. That's tough. Shit finished, dog. If you're a Philly fan, matter of fact, come on, let's hey, yo, Philly fans, come on in here and vent,
Yeah,
bro.
Justin.
Yeah, this shit is finished, bro. This shit finished, man.
I guess I'm curious though, like what? And again, maybe the Philly fans can answer this. They were up 29 at that point in time in the game. Did he go out like shortly after this? Like, were they just trying to like make sure they were securing the win? They would work like what was? I mean, I know you can't look backward at that, but that's just that's a lot of points to be up. It was. I mean, there's 4 minutes left in the game, so I mean, imagine they just wanted to keep him in. Just that's tough, man. I pray he gets healthy like quickly, man. Cause that's a hard injury to overcome personally anyway, just for him. But just for the sake of the team, man. Hope he gets back soon.
I'm about to say, even if he comes back soon, I mean, he's just not. I mean, he's not going to be the same, man. He's just not. He's not.
Yeah, he got the thumb injury and then now the eye. I mean, he's at
Didn't he have
very least
that
gonna have a
before?
mask on.
I feel like there was a series when I think Markel Fultz had hit him in the face, and they had a series against Miami. I think it was 2018. Um, and then like he had to wear a face mask. Is that the same injury? Or is that something different?
Yeah, I think it was the other eye though.
That is tough, bro.
God
I,
damn.
I, I ain't gonna
Jesus
cap. I know
Christ.
I know Miami got a lot of fans, but like I really wanted to see them get tested to really see if like because I honestly the way the Sixers were playing in that last game, I was like, okay, maybe they have a they can make it interesting, but bro, that's a clean. I mean, that's a boring series. I ain't gonna lie. As a fan, I'm not. I'm pissed because I wanted to see what Miami was gonna do against Embiid, and if Embiid can just carry his team again, and that shit is whack.
Listen,
But yeah, and
yeah, it's
Steve-O, he
tough.
did suffer that same injury earlier. Markel Fultz clipped him, and he had I think it was right under his eye.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, so he had that same
Yeah,
injury in the playoffs before.
and he had to wear a mask, and I'm pretty sure he was out
That
for some time beforehand. Like that was before the playoffs started, if I remember clearly. But that
hmm
sucks.
and he had to wear that black. It was a black chrome mask or something like that. I forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chrome
Paige
it's
the
fiber,
tough,
something
Prophet.
like
man.
that.
I just think it's all like pretty messed up because I feel like Miami they haven't really been tested at all. I
I,
mean they
I,
played
th- I think Miami would have still won the series even if Embiid was there.
versus the Hawks.
No, if Embiid is out for the whole series, and I feel like I had Miami even winning before the injury, so I don't know.
They probably would have still won, but like, bro, I wanted to see them like legit get
I know,
tested,
yeah,
bro. Like,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, they're the number one seed. People really know who
I
like
don't think they're beating the Bucks or Celtics though.
that.
If they
Yeah,
get
and
past,
this was
yeah.
the gauge. This was us knowing like, okay,
If
bet.
Miami gets to the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't think they're beating Bucks or Celtics at all.
I want
Yeah,
to pose a
I think they're
question
getting
though.
smoked.
I know this is a different type of injury, and we look at it more like a freak accident and stuff. But does this like do further damage to the MB? Just can't count on him? Like, does this?
Yeah,
How do y'all feel about
I
that?
feel like that's not fair to him, right?
That's
Because
not
there's
fair,
nothing he's
bro.
doing.
Because
Yeah, he's not doing
yeah,
anything personally to get that. I
you
think
can't
it's just,
control the
uh,
concussions and shit.
yeah, it's just a part of his history, unfortunately. But it's not fair to him. Like I would never for anybody getting injured like that. Like from when he hurt his knee, even last year when somebody ran into it, his hand earlier this year, the foot injuries. Like it's not like he's ever done anything to like like he doesn't like he's not going after people getting hurt. Like this is just a part of the basketball. Like he just happened to get hit with a crazy elbow, but unfortunately, man, like yeah, that's just tough, man. Like there's nothing he could have done different. Like he was in the paint, he was contesting, and happened to get hit in the eye.
Yeah, he was literally just doing the one thing he's supposed to do as a center, and for that to happen, I just think like it's very unfortunate. I didn't catch the game last night. I just caught like some of the highlights because I had things to do. But with this being like with this happening, I don't know. I just think Miami they're gonna have like another one of those Suns type of like runs to the finals. But I don't know. I don't know because does Middleton come back before?
Yeah, I
I
mean it's a
think
Uh,
he.
grade
I
two. It
think
might be
he's
six.
done. He's
It
done
No,
might
for
be
that
six
he's
series.
done.
weeks.
He's
It
done
might
for
be
this
six
year.
weeks.
Yeah,
Might be done for the year.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, Middleton will be back if they make it to the conference
This shit
finals.
crazy. All
not with
these
a
bro.
grade two.
Yeah, they
No,
said
Yeah,
no.
4 to 6 weeks for
Middleton.
a grade two.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
There's too
okay,
many
okay.
injuries in this playoffs. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
the
Adam
same
Silver
thing
got a
last year though.
too many games, man. Too
You
many
know, you
games.
know, you know who I feel for a lot too, though. Ooh, and it sucks, man. Like, man, this man Harden cannot catch a break either. I ain't
Not
gonna
at
cap.
all, man.
It's
You
it's
thought that
crazy.
younger,
oh
man.
shit.
Oh
It's
Lord.
Damn. I
crazy.
just thought
Gotta
about
put
you, right,
Harden
bro.
in hell.
Like, and the thing is,
Damn.
if y'all watched that game yesterday, like, I'm not saying Harden looked like 2019 MVP Harden, but bro was kind of looking like he looked good. That was a game like, okay, Harden, if you can continue this, we got something. Like that was a good way to end that series going into the next one. And damn, like an MVP caliber, like who could win MVP this year is gone. It's I ain't gonna lie, he's had a lot of tough breaks in his career. I know I don't want to put too much energy on Harden because it is about Embiid, but it's something I thought about because I'm from Houston, so yeah, it's crazy.
Now, that's a fair point. That's real. It's real. I think does Doc does Doc deserve any criticism for having them in the game?
I mean, it was 4 minutes left. Like I just asked that
Yeah,
question. Like there was 4 minutes left in the game. I
Yeah,
imagine like
you're
I
right.
thought it was
Like,
two.
word.
I, I think as a coach,
Oh
once I'm
yeah,
up
four.
29 with 4 minutes, I'm just like all my starters.
Why
I'm
he's in
putting
the
all.
game, bro?
Yeah,
The
like
Dallas
pull
Mavericks
them
did the
all
same shit.
immediately.
The Dallas
Wait, when you're
Mavericks
up
did
like
the same
30,
shit.
I mean, I
The
don't.
Dallas
I mean,
Mavericks
yeah,
did the
that's
same
that's
shit
tough
to
though.
Luca,
Like
bro.
you know what I mean? Because they could have been playing straight, right? It could have been 'Cause I don't remember the game. He could have been in since y'all know how basketball is. There could have not been a whistle for 6 minutes. You know what I mean? So they could have been from the 6 minute mark all the way down, going on a run. The next thing you know, like he getting ready to take him out, but it just crossed over the 4 minute threshold, and they just got to a 29-point lead. So I can't really put a variable on that, man. Honestly, it's just like a really, really, really unfortunate spot to be in, just to get hit with an elbow like that. No matter what, any point in the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, but like in the clip there, you can see like there's no sub like even readily available. And so if you remember the game, like they were up 20 like going into the fourth quarter, or like up 18, and the game was already in hand like 9 minutes like left in the fourth. So from Doc to not even remotely put him out when the game is over, you're up 25 in a 9 minute stretch, and you have Harden still facilitate out there if anything goes haywire. To have him in down 30, not 20, not 18, not 26, 30 points with 4 minutes left is inexcusable all in itself. So it's the funniest thing because this is a Doc Rivers masterclass, like before even the second round started. So I'm just laughing my ass
Yeah,
off
I'm
here.
blaming it on him.
This,
I'm blaming it on Doc
yeah,
Rivers for sure.
yeah, like there's no excuse for that. Like how do you
Take him out the
I would
game,
love
bro.
for someone to give me a reason why you need your MVP in the game in Philadelphia to be up while you're up 30 to be in a closeout game with 4 minutes left. Makes no
Shaking my
sense.
head,
No
man.
Probably
sense.
because they were worried about. I ain't gonna lie. The game,
A
like before
comeback?
that game even
What?
started, he was already like, he was stressed about this game. If you're from Philly or playing on that game, they had to win that game because if they didn't
Yeah,
win, it would have been a
100%.
seven
Pressure was
game.
Right.
on.
You know what I'm saying? So there maybe even looking at the score doesn't make sense, but maybe in that moment you just want to be sure, like 100% sure, because I mean at the end of the day, Doc Rivers has blown a
No,
lot of
and
leads,
listen,
but
I get about being
No,
100%
but
because
still,
we some like crazy things. I completely
still
agree.
and
stupid.
I
Like,
agree with y'all. I agree with y'all.
no,
I'm just
because
saying
I
like
agree
in
with
that
what you're saying in a sense. Like 17-point leads, like that's nothing. I agree with you. 19-point leads, that's nothing. But bro, 30 with four
yeah
minutes left,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
it's a bit
inexcusable.
excessive.
It's
Yes,
extremely
it's excessive.
30 with four, bro. 30 with four.
Oh my god.
The real fucked up part about it though is that like this is just another year that probably will go to the wayside. Harden next year is going to have a player option, and it's already been discussed. Is he worth opting in
Oh, they
for a
should
max
not pay him that much.
contract?
Yeah.
He's going to be 33 by the end of August. He already looks a step slower. Like this was definitely one of the windows in Embiid's career, and definitely Harden's career to win the championship. And it's now to the wayside. Like it's now to the wayside. The following year, they already have $10 million more committed to the cap, so the odds of them making any space to make any adjustments really goes out the window as well. It's just it fucking sucks because if they go on to commit to Harden for a max contract, they are basically going to be committed to the concept of a Harden and Embiid duo while Harden is declining and they have to wait another year before Tobias Harris comes off the books. And if they can't get nothing of value for Tobias, it really won't matter because they'll already have like $80 to $90 million committed to Embiid and Harden. And be very mindful that Embiid with his supermax contract that he's already signed to, he's one of the very few players who down the line is will get paid in the 50 millions. Like he is, that's where Embiid is at. That's where Embiid is going to be getting paid in the 50 millions. Theoretically speaking, the salary cap should keep going up, so it shouldn't be that hard of a hit on Embiid. But I mean, the Sixers are considering signing two supermax players, and one of which is declining with Harden. I don't know, bro. This is tough. And to be fair, the questions of their bench depth has already been brought up several times throughout the post trade deadline. It's just a tough fucking, and it just sucks to see. I mean, Harden is as much as people like to slander him. I would love to see him get a very fair opportunity to win a championship, and I thought this year was it. And you don't really
Wait,
know what's going to happen
wait,
next
what if
year.
it goes crazy without Embiid? Just drops 30 like almost every game. That would be
I
That'd
don't
crazy.
be
think I
that'd
don't
be
I
think
worse.
30
mean,
is
I
That'd
don't
be
enough.
think I
worse.
do enough.
You know
It's
how
not
I
that'd be
don't
enough.
bad
think
for
It's
that's
just
enough.
not
Philly.
enough.
That could
I
be
do have
bad
a
for
So what would
Philly.
you
question
think is
about this
enough?
though.
What's
For
enough?
Low, how do you feel about because I'm looking forward because I think if Embiid's out, series over. Do you think that with
clearly.
the ascension of Tyrese Maxey, that they should try to move Tobias Harris for like a backup big?
Yeah, I
Because
mean
depth is one of their
theoretically,
issues anyway.
you want to, but I don't think Tobias. I mean, I'm not going to say nothing is possible because anything is possible in the NBA. But Tobias Harris's trade value probably won't truly peak until 2 years later when he's on an
But he
expiring
has 1 year.
contract and it's 40 mil. The problem though is that it's not. Yeah, Tobias Harris will eventually get traded, regardless if it's this year or next year. The way that Maxi has improved, you definitely either want bench depth or more defense to kind of help out everybody. The problem though is that this is just a year out of the careers of Embiid and Harden that's thrown out the window. And if you're Philly, you wanted to like secure the answer of, hey, is Harden worth giving the supermax to? I think they're going to give it to him, but you don't really get that answer. And if we're being honest with ourselves, Harden post trade, he has been like the definition of spotty. Like he hasn't like nothing. He doesn't look like the Harden of old. And so now you're going to go into giving him a max contract extension for what he basically did in Houston, not what he's doing in Philly, not what he's going to do in Philly. And that's what's going to really hard cap them moving forward. And that's where it's kind of just fucked because
Yeah.
it's like, well, even if you move Tobias, you are limited to what this team is going to look like. And even going back to the Maxi thing, Maxi also has to go on contracts because in 2 years down the line, that's when his contract has to kick in. And then Matisse also has to get paid another year down the line as well. So there's players that they kind of still need to pay. And then after next year, Danny Green comes off the books and he's 10 million. Now, if you keep him, I don't know. But for a team that already is lacking in depth, it can get worse. And Maxi is someone who's looking like he should be getting max or near max. So are you going to pay Maxi near max amount of money, Harden max money, while Embiid is already receiving his max money? It's just like it just sucks, and,
But
and
this is
financially,
why
it's
those
a lot of
teams are
money.
in a horrible spot is because and everyone's and even to our own teams that we support for, like look at the Lakers and the Nets. Like this two max strategy, we can clearly see it's like fucking teams up in terms of depth, in terms of spreading money around. Now I don't think Maxi's a max player yet, but you make a good point, is like you have to, reward guys, but their lack of depth, and we've seen like finding a backup for Embiid is not working. They've taken the last three Lakers centers and none of them have panned out like at all. And so when you have those situations, Danny Green's getting older. They just have no options in a sense. Tobias Harris is like one of the worst contracts in the league, has been for years, and now you consider trading him to like find some other options. They're completely screwed because they can't lose. Morey's still, no matter how bad Harden has played this postseason, is not going to replace James Harden because of his loyalty. So, like you said, he's going to give him the super max, and they're just going to hard cap themselves and remain in this
If
mediocrity.
Harden keeps playing bad, they might get swept.
Not if
They might get
Morey's at the
swept if he
helm,
keeps
dude.
playing bad.
Daryl Morey worships the ground James Harden walks on because he made
Right.
him who he was because of the system they implemented. So
So
Morey's not going to give out on Harden that soon, and they're just continually going to be in this sense of mediocrity. They're going to be a top four seed. They're going to be fourth or fifth every single season because they have Embiid and Harden, but have no
Just to
depth.
lose.
No depth.
Let me
It's
throw
the
this
same
at
thing's
you
going to
though.
happen every
Let me
single
throw
year.
this at you. Now, I'm not saying it will happen, but we all know the Sacramento Kings are a terrible organization, terribly
Right.
run
Disgusting.
organization.
Right.
Facts.
Could Tobias Harris be on the move for Rashawn Holmes?
Rashawn Holmes doesn't move the needle for you. Yeah, you get younger, but like what is that? Like, what are the
Yeah,
Sixers looking to do? If the main goal is to move off a contract, then go ahead and sure. But with the superstar like Embiid, with the facilitator like Harden, they are in dire position and pressure to compete now.
I
Joel
think
Embiid has
Maxi's
done that city.
ascension.
Joel Embiid has done that city a major service by swearing his loyalty to them. He's going to run out of patience real soon. So the time to compete has been
What
now,
if
and the Sixers organization has done nothing to support him. They've just been stranglehold the entire season, and with their coach, they are just always deadlocked at the second round. Philly fans go absolutely crazy over a first round win, even though they do that every single year, because that is their championship. Because when it comes to the second round, they were going to win regardless. And so with the in the front office, Rashawn Holmes is great and everything like that, and getting off Tobias is great. But where does the needle stop? Like, where does it come? You got to figure
What
some
if
solution
I mean
instead of getting off a bad
Chris
contract.
Paul is making a max contract. If you can get Harden to, I'm just saying possibility wise, because Harden I don't think is worth the max. But if you do
Phoenix will
resign,
step
He's
up
not.
too, though.
if you
He's
don't
not.
resign Harden, you have to go trade Tobias for a star. Zach Levine is available. I'm not gonna lie, he's an available star that you could try to look to get. But I think that if you look at how Phoenix has it, Phoenix has Chris Paul is making a lot of money. He's not a super offensive star, but you know that when it comes to being a playmaker for that team, he can do it. James Harden is still an elite level playmaker, even though he's not
He's much
going.
more efficient though,
Yeah,
still
he know
though.
he exactly. That's a problem too. But
And
I don't.
and to be fair,
Go ahead.
and but just quickly to be fair to the Phoenix situation, I think okay. So the financial situation, two max players work fine if those two max players have proof like that they can perform at that level. So that's that. But two, if you don't have that, then what normally ends up happening is that you may have a player who's like slightly overpaid, but it's all justifiable because you're getting way more production out of somebody else than you were previously expected. And so, in terms of Phoenix, the level of production that they're receiving from DeAndre Ayton right now is way more than what he's actually getting paid. And similar can be said about Mikal Bridges right now because
Right.
he's making $5 million. So the production that you're getting from these two players is more than what they're actually worth. However, the Phoenix Suns are in a similar situation where they gave the extension to Mikal, but not to Aiton. So it's like, okay, what are you going to do with Aiton? Which is why this window for them is also very important because you always, practically in NBA history, every team has had a player who's producing more than what they're actually getting paid. So that
But
that
then,
always exists.
but then low, if we go deeper into the two max theory, because like you said, like that seems to be a formula that most teams are going towards, right? So the example that obviously I can think of is right, like LeBron and AD like went Super Saiyan God mode for that postseason, and which is why the front office there is sticking to that and making everything else seem fit, throughout several failures over multiple off seasons. Embiid was second in MVP this year, but his health and his durability, while it's been great in the past few years, that's a question. James Harden this postseason and how mid he's been this season for the Sixers, that's also a question. So I don't think we can compare the production of those two potential max players to a production like a CP and Book and LeBron and AD in that sense. That's why there's questions mark. Personally, for me, and I don't like James Harden, is all everyone knows this. I do think right now his value, I would put him at like a 3-year 100, 3-year 110 kind of value. He's not going to take anything less than the supermax, and I don't think he's going to get that. But if you give, let's say Embiid's on a $40 million clip, and you give Harden 30, that's 70 million, and then hopefully get off Tobias's books. Now you can actually talk about, okay, where else does this team fit? What else are we missing on this team? But without that, with stubbornness and the supermax there, people entitled to their money, you're never going to open those conversations up.
So I agree. So, well, let me refresh the room real quick because the new people are already in here. If you don't know, the news is just not breaking that Embiid is going to be out more than likely for at least for probably for all of the second round. And if they somehow make it out, he probably will have to do not probably will have to be wearing a mask in the conference finals if they can make it that far. As he suffered a right orbital fracture as well as a mild concussion. Um, and the reason why we're breaking down finances with the Sixers is because this season was very pivotal for them in terms of what they were going to do next year because Harden's coming off the books. He's about to come off the books, and obviously it's James Harden. So there's some people who believe that he's going to ask for a supermax contract. And so to what Shub is saying is correct. Like I don't as great as and ironically enough. Swipe and a few other people having this conversation in the other room about like superstar caliber players. The reality is that Harden isn't at that level anymore to where it would really justify him getting a super max contract. He would only be receiving it because what he did back in Houston, and so that is which is fair. Like it's understandable, especially if you're feeling you want to retain the opportunity to compete. But the reality is that I agree. I don't think that when you put yourself in a situation where you're overly depending on two max contract caliber players, and that's really it, without having that many ancillary pieces surrounding them. Those two max caliber players have to consistently prove that they can perform at that level, not only during the regular season, but also in the postseason. And with Harden declining, I don't know if that's the case. And I don't want to jump, because I know there's a bunch of Philly fans who are probably upset, but I'm just to contextualize everything because I don't want to jump too far ahead of the gun here. But to contextualize everything, I agree with you, Shubs. The concept of moving off of Harden, which is something that honestly they should have been probably thinking about anyway. The idea of being hesitant to give Harden that contract should be taken very seriously, and I think it should be taken even more serious this year, because the reality is that, are you going to strap yourself in for a Harden and Embiid duo when Embiid deals with injury problems? And not saying that this is an example of it because this is a fluke injury, but he does deal with injury problems, and Harden is declining to a point where, I mean, he is quickly out of the top 10 conversation, I would say, moving forward, especially when everyone is healthy, if he continues to play the way he's played this year. And so when you put that into concept, yeah, I agree. I think the concept of moving off of Harden should be taken very, very serious, because if you decide to stay on Harden, there's absolutely no way that you're going to position yourself in a situation to where it just makes sense moving forward, because they're like, Harden is just declining. And with us learning about Donovan Mitchell and Utah potentially blowing it up, and us also learning about not really learning, but Zach LaVine alluding to the concept that he might move on or at least keep his mind open, there legitimately could be better options at the guard position, or just having another guard, than having an agent Harden. Because even if we want to sit here and say today and next year and maybe even the year after that, Harden is better than D. Mitch or LaVine, those following 3 years, it ain't gonna be that way. Especially when Harden is getting paid $55+ million, it's gonna be tough for the niggas.
Real quick, because like I don't want to go overboard too, because at the end of the day, this is just beginning. If Harden, this is my thing too about this whole situation. If Harden goes into this next series, and let's say Embiid, he's not playing. Let's say we get a Harden where it looks like, oh, almost close to what Houston was. Not saying it will happen. It's a stretch, of course. But if we get a Harden that's scoring the ball efficiently, let's say he doesn't have like a Trae Young performance, because I think they're gonna have the same scheme they have for Trae Young on James Harden. But I think James Harden has been in the playoffs so long enough that he knows how to attack that if he shows up and everything. If he plays well, I think that makes it harder on Philly, because now Philly realizes, okay, he's shown his worth to an extent here. Now we have to give him that max. But if he has a series that's like, let's say he underperforms, let's say he's shooting the ball pretty bad, I think that would be better for Philly. It sounds crazy, because then it would be, the consensus would be clearly, okay, you're not worth the max, but we can still keep you, because I think that they can still win with Harden and Embiid. And you brought up a good point where it comes up with, there's always that one player who plays over their max, like Mikal Bridges. Maxi could be that guy for Philly, and I think they still have a lot of moves to make on their team. But Harden, I think they can still win with Harden, and especially I know it's early. They probably still will lose that
Uh-huh.
series most likely, but I think it's important that we like. I don't want to put the brakes too much on Harden being completely out of there. Like, I know he hasn't looked great now, but let's just wait and see against like
But
this.
even let's say, I think that even if Harden does play great, like let's just say it is
They're still gonna
2018
lose.
Harden, it's just, yeah,
No,
it's
that's
not
fine
enough.
though. Yeah, that's
It's not,
fine.
it's,
Like
it's just not enough. And so,
it's not an yeah.
but the point I'm making isn't really, because even if Harden is looking that good right now, next year he's 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. If they give him a max contract extension, he's going to be paid $50+ million at 37, 38 years old.
And honestly,
But
Lo,
they had to do that though. They traded for it. Like,
But I
my
don't.
thing is this.
But that's the
Go
thing.
ahead.
But do they though? Like we
do
we
they?
just
Yeah.
we're
What?
saying that for the sake of saying it. But if Maxi's on the team, you're flipping Tobias anyway. I don't understand. Like I let me take that back. I understand why. Like who who James Harden is as a player. I understand why. But they're not in a position to solidify themselves moving forward anyway. It should have been something that was already being questioned. And so, and this is like me. I'm not saying this just because this injury brought this up. Again, it should be something they thought about anyway. But if the landscape in this offseason tells us that Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, and Bradley Beal are all available, with Tyrese Maxey emerging and James Harden declining, and you potentially being able to just flip Tobias Harris on a $40 million expiring contract a year later anyway, that team can just look structurally better in so many different facets than where they are right now, because you hard capping yourself in the future for that. Like, not only does Tyrese has to get paid, but Matisse has to get paid as well. And Matisse, after this, the next season is his last year. So his contract is going to kick in much sooner. So then it's like, okay, what are you paying Matisse? Are you going to keep Danny Green? Or are you going to let him walk? How much are you giving Maxi? Because if he's providing evidence right now that he's a max contract player
Right.
now, oh, he's definitely going to provide it in another year or two. And if you don't pay him a max, there will definitely be somebody, a team out there, where he will go out in the open market, get a max, and if you're not willing to match it or not, then you're going to be screwed. So are you going to be in a situation where for a 3 to 4 year span, you're going to have three players at max or near max money, with Maxi, Harden, and Embiid, with Embiid declining, with Harden declining, and the rest of the roster just completely screwed because everything just so happened to collapse to you at the wrong time. Because that's really the problem. It's just
And
everything is collapsing at them at the
and,
wrong time. That's the
And Lo,
problem.
what is to keep Josh Harris, like the Sixers ownership, from saying that what you just mentioned is like, okay, I have a 32-year-old, 33-year-old aging star. Why can't Maxi be him? Why can't I invest in him early on rather than Harden? Now, there's a lot of dumb organizations, and there's a lot of dumb organizations that would throw Harden that super max, especially losing ones like we mentioned in Sacramento, things like that, and they have reason to do that. They're just grasping at straws. They're desperate. But is Harden gonna want to wind up his career there? No, he's made it very clear throughout his movement. He made it very evident throughout his career with his movement that he wants to still contend. And so, it just depends or not whether Philly's gonna make, what kind of moves
So
they're
if
gonna
you don't
make.
wait, so if you don't
Why are we
stay with
assuming?
76ers, what other team would it go to that's a contender?
Yeah, what are
Like
we why are we assuming he's going to ask for the supermax? I mean,
Even if
if
he don't
he
ask for a super max, I'm assuming he's asking for near max.
if
exactly.
he wants to win, he could, and he likes it here, he should
He
be
wants
willing to take a huge pay cut.
But if that was the case, why
Nah,
did he do
bro.
that in
Nah,
Houston?
bro.
exactly. Why would he do that?
He
Nah,
didn't do
bro.
it
Nah,
in
wait.
Houston. Why
See,
would he
see,
do
no,
it
no,
here?
no. He because he wanted to leave Houston. Though. He wanted to leave Houston. He like I ain't gonna lie. Harden quit on that team because he wanted to leave.
No, I'm
He
talking about
went to
before that though, when there were several other opportunities where they needed to make some moves and adjustments to the roster. Harden didn't. Harden was, and I'm not mad at him, but Harden was
yeah.
so much about his money that he actually restructured his contract. I believe, well, definitely once, but if I'm not mistaken, twice. He
No, yeah.
restructured it twice.
The
Them
thing
street
is,
clubs
in
are
that in
hitting
that in
hitting
that
different.
Harden could have stayed in Houston, and they would have been they made moves to win, but he did not want to be in Houston. He was like, you know what, we don't have enough. I want to go. That's fine. That's his decision. Cool. He went to Brooklyn because he wanted to win. Didn't work out there, but like think about it. The reason why Harden even left left this offseason, like in the not offseason at the trade deadline, was because he saw what Brooklyn was like. I was like, you know what, I left Houston, spent all that time there, left there to go to Brooklyn to go win, and this is not the environment. So he came to Philly. So my thing too is like Philly traded for Harden. Like I know it sounds good where we have all these other guys in free agency who are available, Levine, D. Mitch, all that. I just don't think I don't know who mentioned it. Maybe it was Graham who said it. I don't think he's worth the max, and I think that if he really wants to win, he's going to have to take less than that. That the big issue is if Harden gets the max, the Sixers are kind of in trouble. But they did trade for Harden not for half a season. I just can't. I don't think that's the play
But then
because I think that they're.
we gotta remember
I
who's
think
at top.
they went into getting Harden for at least 2 seasons
We
going
gotta
into
remember
next season.
we got to remember who's at the top though. Literally, Daryl Morey is Harden's guy. Like he's the one who brought him in here. He was his GM back in Houston. Like they are buddy buddy, like at the hip and everything like that. So we got to remember how much bias because of everything Morey, how Harden has done for Morey in Houston. Those 65 win teams, Western Conference Finals, all the success, everything Harden did to make Daryl Morey relevant how much of that is going to play into these contract negotiations if a supermax is not on the table between Harden and Morey? We
I
are going
think
to see how loyal Morey is to Harden with what is to come. And if his love for Harden is going to blind him into making a decision that is going to bind the Sixers yet again for years to come. That's what
Moore's
we got to
too
focus on.
Moore's too good of a GM, I think, to worry about that. I
I
really
mean, you
think.
think that, but he's obsessed with Harden, dude. Like, why do you think he went through fucking so many hurdles just to get to his guy?
I
He
mean, because
literally
Ben
sat Ben
Simmons is a
Simmons
But
for
Hart,
fucking
18,
bum.
18
Maury's
months.
not dumb. Maury's not a stupid GM, though. Like you said, Maury's
It's
not
because
stupid. Maury
Ben
literally
Simmons
understands. Yeah,
Maury is
Maury.
he's
trash.
not dumb, but he's loyal to Harden. He's not
He
dumb,
is
but he's
loyal to
loyal to Harden.
Harden. He was. I mean, yeah, he was
But
loyal to
he's
Harden,
like,
but
I mean, Embiid and is like, especially like even considering the culture of the franchise and Philadelphia fans, Embiid has last say on probably anything at this point. I mean, because he's like been sticking through a bunch of bullshit.
Yes,
Like,
let's say,
But
or
but
what are you
and
saying?
wait, let me say that real quick because I'm L Dog. You coach. I'm gonna be doing other things. So try to like juggle the requests as well because I'm gonna try to get more people to talk. But but from my understanding of the situation, a Embiid, if I'm not mistaken, wanted Bradley Beal, not Harden. So there's A. B. Morey has been on record numerous times saying the value of just having star caliber players on the roster and how that has always consistently resulted in transcendent play in terms of like trying to win. So the name value of Harden possibly could be enough to convince himself to sign a long-term deal. And I also agree that yes, it wasn't just to be here for 1 year, maybe two, possibly three. But the reality is that one of those 2 to 3 years that he was supposed to be here now essentially is thrown out the window. And the litmus test that we were going to utilize to determine if Harden was going to be worth the max, now that's out the window. And we're going into the offseason with Harden only having 1 year left on his player option. He could surely opt in for that player option and then they can kind of restructure something on the back end. And I think that could also happen. But if out of the finite amount of time that we need to have to determine if it's worth it or not, one of those years is not thrown out the window. It just makes things much more difficult, especially when again, Thibault and Maxey still have to get paid. Like you still have other players on a team that's already fairly thin that needs
YOLO.
to get
I
paid.
I don't. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why you're talking about Thibault. He's kind of a bum now. I mean, everyone in the fan base is kind of tired of him, especially after the Raptors series.
Them brick shots.
And his offense has shown to be so terrible that his contract isn't going to be anything significant.
It's not
Before
really
respectfully, oh,
it's
I
not
did
really
have
the
a
amount
question.
that's being significant. It's the fact that y'all are already going to be over the salary cap anyway with the Harden extension. Retaining Thibault would just be your capability of juggling as many contracts as possible and how far you're willing to go over the salary cap. Because when Harden receives his max contract between Harden and Embiid and the last year or two of Tobias Harris, the Philadelphia will already be over $100 million with just those three players alone. So it's not that like are you so tired of Matisse Thybulle that you're gonna allow him to walk for literally nothing? Like is that what you're saying? Because if
His
so,
defense
I
is
think
still
that's
great.
still bad GMing.
And I do have this question though. Um, could Harden's
Respectful, I see
playoff
your hand. I'll go to you
performance?
next.
Oh, okay.
No, you got you
Could
got to go next.
Harden's performance against the Heat alter your way of thinking at all? Like, let's say he goes out and performs and just shows, let's say, glimpses of Houston. Could that make you say, all right, well, maybe we hold off and we do give Harden the extension? And, if there's a point where we feel like it's not going to work, we try to sell like high while we can before it becomes a Russell Westbrook type contract or a John Wall type contract.
Well, that would be the other problem. So could he perform well enough for me to justify him being on a team? Sure, even if that means him taking a slight pay cut. Do I think that's going to happen? No. And I also think it would be unfair for anybody to really hold me to that standard because the rest of the roster just isn't good enough to like. It's not even pieced together properly for it
Harden to look like the old Harden with the level of floor spacing that would be needed for him to look that way. And so, long story short, no. Because even at Harden at his best, I don't think it would be justifiable to give him a max contract at this stage of his career. Even at his best, because I know for a fact towards the tail end of it, it doesn't. I don't think it looks good. I don't think it looks good at all. I don't like what Chris Paul is doing right now. I don't think Harden will be able to do that, and that's not like really a knock on Harden. It's just that Chris Paul is like 36, going to be 37 in a week from now, and he still looks extremely great. I don't even think he'll be that caliber of player at 36, 37 years old. So yeah, you're right. We're going to be in a situation where it's just basically another Westbrook situation, but the difference is that the Philadelphia 76ers, they're not OKC. Like it's not even like justifiable for them to go get him because there's nothing like there's no loyalty there, and they weren't hard pressed to do it. I think there's just so many other outs that they could be entertaining. That's the reason why I would look at it. But I mean, I guess there's a world where he plays so great that it would justify for him to get the contract. I just wouldn't. I personally wouldn't get duped into thinking that type of logic. Respectfully, I see your hand is up. What you got to say, brother?
Yo, what's going on? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
So I've been listening to the conversation on and off. My biggest thing is you move off of Harden and you don't pay him. I don't think pay him a supermax. Who's your table setter going to be? Because as much as Zach LaVine scores and Bradley Beal scores, who's going to set the table? And what people not realizing is that Maxi's ascending. A lot of the part of it is because of James Harden. And people don't want to admit that. I mean, I get the scoring is down, but the assists are still great. His defense has always been trash. But if you don't have a point guard to even, set Embiid up the way he's been set up, even though Embiid gets his points, he still does what he does. How much easier is it Embiid getting his points? Now you bring in Bill. His points are not going to be as easy. You bring in Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is a turnstile on defense. And you're not talking about Zach LaVine's injury history as well, and Bradley Beal. So we could talk about injuries, injury history. It all sounds good. The biggest point is the Sixers team wasn't set up for a championship from the beginning. Ben Simmons sitting out, as good as Steph Curry has been, Steph Curry's a turnstile. The only competent defensive player besides Embiid is Steibel. We don't have a true 3-and-D guy. We don't have a legit six-man coming off the bench. You got Milton every now and then. Korkmaz might have a game every 35 games. Like, you got Paul Reed, who's undersized. The only competent one was Drummond, but Drummond starting can't give you anything. So it was just like the team wasn't set up for success. Like how Milwaukee set up with Lopez, you bring in Portis. Portis can stretch the court. Like, we don't have that. And that's what people aren't realizing. The faster we move on for Tobias Harris, the faster the team will get a lot better. It's not so much Harden and paying him, it's getting rid of Tobias Harris.
But so the Tyrese thing, there's some truth to that. But Tyrese was looking great before Harden got there. He was still putting up like the shooting splits weren't with their exact same, but he was definitely ascending to a point where he looked like he could be a more than competent piece.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. But what I'm saying is, like, right now, with his shots he's getting, a lot of it is because Harden is still on the court. Like when he'll give you a 15-point game, then he'll give you a 25-point game, but he never gave you a 38-point game or a 40-point game close to that, maybe one time during the season. And you could clue in on Maxey when you don't have nobody else to stretch the court or to facilitate the ball. So that's what I'm saying with that. So him having Harden is a great thing. But like I was saying, my biggest premise, the team is incomplete. It's not complete at all. If you compare any of the teams that's in the playoffs right now, they have a legit second unit. We have mismatched players. Like I said, the way we get through that is moving Tobias Harris.
But that's fair. But like I said before, Tobias's value isn't going to be viewed high enough until like he's on an expiring contract. Because like nobody's not going to really want to be like buying and maybe there might be a team, but Tobias next year is 38, and then on his last year is 40. The $40 million is so I can say I'm getting $40 million off my book sounds way more reasonable and entertaining than it does right now when I'm struggling to understand like where does he even fit on any team in the NBA that's worth that value. And sure, what you're saying is true that Tobias Harris is holding you up. The reality is that what's going to be holding you up next would be the James Harden contracts. Because as soon as Tobias comes off the books, there being a player getting paid 40 to 45 plus $1 million and not being actually worth that, that player would then be James Harden. And not only would it then be James Harden, but then Tyrese Maxey's contract would come into fold as well. So realistically speaking, between James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Maxey, they'll probably have 110, $115 million committed to those three players alone, because Harden is probably going to be receiving 45 plus $1 million. Embiid, when that comes into place, was already receiving $44 million, and then Maxey will be receiving, even if we gave him just a $15 million contract. I mean, we're talking about, what is that? Like what is that? Was that
But
105? Like, it's
but
already.
good but good
It's,
GMs figure a way. I mean, that's why you have a Daryl Morey. I mean, you can't place all the onus on the players. You got to place the onus on Daryl Morey. And I think Daryl Morey has enough sense to be able to finagle and move some stuff around to get off those contracts. He's been notorious for making trades that we thought would possibly never happen. And I
but
get that.
what contract? You keep saying again off a contract. The new contract
If no,
would be
what
the
I'm talking
Harden
about is
contract.
Tobias. If you think nobody would jump on Tobias Harris's contract, just like they thought they wouldn't jump on Westbrook's contract or John Wall, it's possible. It's one team. All you need is one team to be a dope.
No, but what I'm saying is that, forget Tobias for a second. I'm saying just between,
Tobias is the
if
crux.
no,
Tobias is the
I get,
crux,
but
though.
no, my financial point is that with Harden, Embiid, and Maxey, just those three alone, not even considering Tobias, just those three alone, when their contracts are kicking in at the same time, we're talking about north of $100 million just being spent on those three players alone. That's what I'm saying. And
Okay,
then whatever you get from Tobias, let's you bust down to 40,000. Let's say you bust it down and you get two quality players who are receiving around 20 million themselves. So now you have a competent 5-man rotation between Harden, Embiid, Maxey, and then the two players that you get from busting it down from Tobias, right? So that's
yeah.
five players, and you're already at $150 million committed to the salary cap, and that's not introducing what you're doing to Matisse Thybulle either.
I'm
So
not
like,
worried about. I'm not worried about Thibault. Thibault is listen. Thibault's folklore in Philly. Like Thibault have a great defensive game, get a steal, get a block, look good on the stat sheet, but he don't help you win the games like that. I'm not worried about Thibault, but what I'm saying is that's why good teams that actually show some type of pedigree, they get players that come in veteran minimums. They get players that come in with trade exceptions, and that way you're able to bring in those players. It's the fact that you think that it's not doable is kind of crazy because it happens all the time. Why do you? And then drafting decently helps as well. That's why Grayson Allen can ascend a little bit in the playoffs and look competent and be able to shoot because he has great players around him. Great players are bringing the best out of good players. We don't even have good players on our secondary team. So that's my biggest thing. Like it's
but
possible. It happens all the
I'm not
time.
saying it's possible. I'm saying, but what at what cost? Like right now, I think Golden State has the highest highest amount of money committed to their salary cap. Right? They
Yep.
have like $175 million, to say, committed to their cap.
too.
No, the Philly
And the
situation
players
is
and the
the
player
Philly.
that's about to get paid in Philly isn't aging the way that Steph is aging, nor the way that Klay Thompson is about to age. They're not gonna age the same. They're aging gracefully. Harden, we're already seeing it. That decline is nasty, bro.
And hold on, and not only get back on Harden. We don't know what the hell is going on with Harden. It's easy to say he's aging and is drastically aging. We don't know if his hammy is still messed up or not. My thing is, if
But
we
that's
don't know,
part of it as
That's a
well,
part of
though.
but
aging,
but
though.
That's
but
part
but
of it.
listen, but no, I'm talking about the actual injury. It takes longer to get back from an injury when you get older. Everybody knows that. That's
But that's
common
part of
sense.
aging. That's
But
that's
That
that
part
that's
but
of
his
that
it.
don't mean
point.
but
That's
that
the
don't mean you
point.
still don't get paid. That don't still mean you don't get paid though. Because guess what? If you don't pick up Harden, somebody else will, and he'll ball out. You'll look crazy, and you won't have no point guard. You'll have Bradley builds a turnstile,
But
or you
who's to
have
say
Jack
that? Just do a sign and trade. And if
with
you
who?
feel is that desperate to get like a
With
quality
who?
a quality point guard. If you think Harden is that valuable to where you need to pay him a max contract, there's no way you're trying to convince me right now that it will be easier to find a place for Tobias Harris to be, knowing that he owes $40 million
you
essentially
just
for the next 2 years. But
but you just gave the example of a sign and trade. With who? If he has that such of a high contract, you're going to run into the same situation the Lakers did.
that's the
Come
same.
on, that.
But by
But
the logic that you're saying, it's the same thing with Tobias Harris.
but guess
It's
what? Guess what? The Harden is giving you way more than Westbrook is, but Tobias Harris is actually a good utility player. He's not declining in any way or shooting your team down. He's just making too much for what he does. Westbrook actually can't play anymore. Not
But
with the
we're not. But
Lakers.
we're not talking about to the extreme of Westbrook. We're just saying that if at Harden at 33, is he worth a max? Let's not even say super max, a max contract for another 5 years, to where he's getting paid XYZ amount of money at the tail end of it? That's the question. And the
There's a lot
If
of
reality,
you want to contend, yes. If you want to contend,
there's
yes.
a lot of people
but
getting
are but
paid max
how
contracts.
well are
Respectfully
they
disagree,
contending
bro.
though? How well are they contending right now? That's the
What do you mean, the Sixers?
and that's the question that we were going to get answered this year. That's why I'm saying it's so pivotal that it's happening. But we
This
don't know what Philly if Philly came into this series and they lost in 5 to the Miami Heat. Are you sitting here saying that you're still contending with James Harden on your team?
You're
No,
contending. No, you can't say that because as player for player, look at the Heat's roster. Not even the starters. Look at the Heat's bench, and then look at the Sixers bench. Like, are you serious? They have Oladipo. Come on,
I
man.
think
But
honestly,
that's my point. You're
Yeah,
making my point.
no, I'm not making your point, dude. You're comparing the salaries to bench.
No, I know.
Like,
Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying that this year was going to answer the question that is a duo of Harden and Embiid good enough to compete. So much so that
yes,
it would
they are.
justify. Hold on. So much so that it would justify to give Harden the max contract. That
Yes,
was
they
what we
are.
were going to get answered this year. We
That
don't
they,
get that answer this year.
but you still have to go on and ledge and pay them because they are competing. My whole point was they was
Competing
competing.
for, how do you
They
know
were
that? You don't know that.
Listen, they were competing without Ben Simmons. Are you kidding me? They was competing with Seth Curry in the starting lineup and
compete
with Therese
competing
Not
Maxey.
for a
competing for
championship, bro.
competing yeah, I must say
How?
competing for a fourth
Listen,
seed and
if you're
competing for
one
a
through,
championship are
Oh
two
my
different
god.
things.
they're fourth seed because of dude. What was the win margin between 1 and 4? Like,
Let me
come
You're
on,
ask
you're
you a
man.
not you're
question.
still not listening
Respectfully,
to what
him.
I'm
Let me ask
saying.
No,
you a
You're not
I'm
question.
listening
listening
to
what
what
you're
I'm
saying, but
I just want to add.
Competing for a first seed is not the
oh
same as
God,
competing for a
Jesus
championship.
Christ,
Were they
Jesus
going to be
Christ.
good enough to win a championship? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm
One
not
more.
saying I know it. What I'm
You
saying is
asked me.
that
You
that
asked me
was
the
the answer.
question
That was a
You
question
just
that we
asked me.
answered.
You just asked me the question if with Harden and Embiid would they be able to contend for a championship? And I say yes. As simple as that. Without
I think
Harden, you don't
I
compete.
th- I think it's a lot like, I mean, at what point do we just, I mean, fuck, dude, look at it realistically. Embiid is injury prone. He's 29.
Who is the injury prone
Joel
besides
Embiid.
Giannis? Besides Giannis, who is it?
Giannis,
Who else?
Jokic.
And where's Jokic right now?
But
But
nigga,
guess
if your
what? Jamal
argument is
Murray.
about the roster not being good enough to
But
compete,
it's not. It's not. It's not because of Joel Embiid and Harden. It's because of the roster. It's the back end.
And I mean, like, how much? I mean,
Before
talk about
You
money. How
can't
many
be
players are
serious.
better
yeah, I don't,
fit?
I don't. You're literally contradicting yourself
I'm
as
not
you
Yeah,
continue.
he's
contradicting myself. They are good enough to compete,
Lo.
but
I just want to add. I think this is the thing because I kind of lost my train of
this is
thought when
crazy.
y'all were going
This is
back and forth.
crazy.
But my thing is this: when you say this duo, we're going to figure out this season between what do we need to pay Harden the max deal. I think you can keep Harden. That's my main thing. The problem that's going to rise is how much do you pay him? That's the thing that's going to happen. And I think that going into this next series against the Miami Heat, they're going to lose. Let's not even. They're going to lose that series. But it's going to be important how Harden performs. Because
Facts.
if you get a Harden that's giving you 30 and 10 and the games are close, then you can at least say, okay, if we add Embiid back, we add in some extra pieces to this team, we have something. But it also is rocky because you can't just take the last few games and forget about Harden's had some rough stints within this season. So it's gonna be how I want to wait until he performs against Miami and then going forward. I think the best bet for them, honestly, is letting him. I don't know how much his player option is instead of extending him immediately. I don't know if that's smart when it comes to the cap space or going into free agency. Because I think that if you lock him in too early, then you could have some problems. Because I do think he's getting older, so that might be an issue.
I agree.
I think
But
to
he
Lowe's point,
he would want to lock. Why would he not want to lock in early?
yeah, Harden as an aging player, it makes absolutely no sense for him not to want to do that because with him having his hamstring history and everything like that, let's say he goes out and he blows it again, then Philly definitely isn't going to pay him, and they won't be able to move off of him. Like it's just a bad situation. So I think Harden would definitely want to lock in early, and I think to Lowe's point, even even if you don't pay Harden the super max, and you just pay him a max contract, regardless, he will be getting more than what he's worth as an aging player. And I think, just understanding basketball now and like the way things have turned over the years and the influx of money and how that influx of cash is actually kind of it's helped and hurt teams because they throw around this money with no foresight for the future and what it will do to their rosters down the line in 2, 3, 4 years. And I just think that yeah, I think Lowe has a really good point, and it's something we really got to think about and talk about. And moving off of Harden might be, respectfully him's point, if you think that highly of Harden, it would be easier to move off of Harden than it will be Tobias Harris. If you really think that highly of Harden, that should be
Status
the
wise,
move.
yes. I mean, status
So
wise, it
that
would
should be
be.
the move.
But status wise, it's easier. But what do you replace with that, though? That's my biggest thing. What do you replace with that? Because you
The
can't say
same thing
Jill.
that you're trying to replace, whatever you think you're going to get from Tobias Harris, the same thing you would get for Harden, just at a higher value.
Exactly.
I
I don't
got
see
a
it.
question for y'all because
What's the question, T?
when they made the trade, I was kind of calling before the playoffs started. I kind of called the season a wash for the 76ers because I felt as if the Sixers were looking to build around James Harden and Embiid by making that trade. So, is it not fair to say that the Sixers would then want to run it back with a reconstructed roster that can play to Harden and Embiid strengths?
Facts.
Say the last part one more time.
I said, when the Sixers, instead of looking to move Harden, wouldn't they be looking to build around Joel Embiid and James Harden by making that move with Ben Simmons? The move, like I feel like that would be a thing that would happen.
But the way that they would have to move, the way that they would have to move pieces around to best suit Harden and Embiid would be, what are you getting in return for Tobias? That's what we're saying, because Harden could essentially go into this. We can go into like another month. Well, I guess 2 months. In a 2 month period, Harden can go from making $46 million to, I want to say, like $50+ million. Like that's what Harden could decline his player option and then receive the max contract and go from making the 46 that he's making now to nearly 50 million. And so at that point, you don't have any wiggle room. Next year, even with Harden's contract the way that it is, the Sixers already have $150 million committed to their payroll. So the only way that you would be able to maneuver and make some improvements to the roster is by moving Tobias Harris for something of value that would address those concerns. So if that's the case, fair. But again, like we're saying, I don't think that there's that many teams that are lining up to pay Tobias Harris for the next 2 years at nearly $40 million a year.
One thing I would say, the one thing for me that's tricky about Harden is that he very much was like an elite player until the injury. Like even in Brooklyn, when he first got there, they were talking about him as an MVP candidate.
Facts.
And that's with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the team. And so my thing is, like, do you actually let him sit down and let him heal that injury?
In the play
Because
like the next round.
if he does get healthy, because like the guy was saying, you don't want to trade him. He gets healthy, and he's over there averaging 39 and 7, and now you don't have a point guard. Like, I feel like the perception of Harden is fair because he has been playing trash. That is a fact.
Facts.
But it, for a fact, has also been since the injury. So
So I
That
want to
all
throw this out. I want to throw this out there in the Harden deal, and I know some people preface my comments. It's a hypothetical situation. I'm just throwing something out there. Please don't pack me up. But could you hypothetically look at Dallas and say, all right, Jalen Brunson, and try to get a 3-team deal involved to move off of Harden and bet on Jalen Brunson's youth?
What?
Could you do something like that and get a 3-team involved? I'm just asking. Don't just a question.
I don't
If
I
we
don't
gonna
think
move off Harden,
I don't think it's the worst. If I'm trading Harden, I would try to get something more than just Jalen Brunson. So it would have to
Give
be
me.
Brunson and some depth that goes along with it. I just don't know
right?
the difference, that much of a difference between Brunson and whatever you want to be optimistic about Tyrese Maxey turning into. I agree that whatever you move Tobias Harris, I mean not Tobias, Harden for, you want to make sure in return you're either addressing potential defensive concerns. So when you lose Thibault, it's not that big of a deal, and or ball handling duties and responsibilities, so it can continue to move forward this concept of like the growth that they have as players. So the money that can be thrown around in many capacities makes sense to move many players. The problem is that okay, so the problem with the whole Harden thing, the second thing that's wrong with it is that sure, could Harden come back? Let's say hypothetically speaking, they get bounced out. He gets his contract, but for the first time in a while, he has like back to back longer off seasons than he normally does, right? So like he gets to chill and sit and relax and doesn't have to look as bad as he did over this past year. And he comes back and he looks better. Sure, like all of that is reasonable, but the only way to really maximize that is still to ask the question is what are you getting from Tobias Harris? Because you're basically still on a timetable. Because if you sign Harden, you're basically saying that we believe that we have the ability to build a championship caliber roster around these two within the next 2 seasons. Because after that, whatever you have, it's what you're going to have. Like you will be remotely stuck with whatever you have because between and again we'll just say Thibault. Let's say Thibault gets vet minimum. Like it doesn't really even matter if you're going to be stuck with Harden's max, Embiid's max, whatever Tyrese Maxey gets, and whatever you get out of Tobias Harris and to buy out of the Tobias Harris trade. The problem is that you are going to be more or less dependent on the concepts that Harden can be a fairly efficient volume scorer who also can be the playmaker that you need and not terrible defensively for how many more years within that contract. And if it's only for a year or two, and then you're stuck with him on the back end of an egregiously bad contract for the last 3 years of it, bro, you're going to be fucked. You will be effectively fucked for the remainder of that contract.
I mean, yeah,
But low,
yeah.
my
How
only
long?
Yeah,
my
but
response would be to that is that, matter of fact, I just my team, my favorite team personally is the Lakers. And so what you're saying, like it all is a risk, but that's what we did when we got injury prone AD. And yeah, it looks fucked up now, but at the end of the day, we have won a championship. And
no, that's
so
not.
if
That's not the same.
I know it's not the same, it's not. But what I'm saying is, if you do sign Harden to that contract, what you're saying is what you're betting on is that Harden and Embiid. Because if we're talking about pre-injury Harden, we're still talking about potentially a top 5 player in the league. And so what you're betting on is that if I have two top 5 players in the league, we should be able to do something. Now, that is the great question. Like, can Harden still be a top 5 player in the league? But all like
I mean,
my only concern is that is a big gamble.
It's a
So
yeah,
very big gamble.
it's a
Lo,
very big gamble. I definitely agree with that.
Lo
But
say
that
like
is the bet. That's what you're betting on.
yeah, if we take the bet on James Harden and it doesn't work out, we're fucked for those 2 years. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, at some point we say, I mean, we just have to take that risk because how much long? I mean, look at Embiid. He's been injured almost every year of his career in some capacity. How
That's
much
fair,
longer
but
do?
with Embiid signing his extension, y'all still have another 5 years of Embiid. So it's not like there's no need to like rush into something for the sake of rushing into something. There's
No,
still
I mean, I'm
several
not
moves
talking
to be
about
made.
contract. I'm talking about how many quality years we have left. I mean,
Well, until I start to see Embiid like really, really take a noticeable decline after the injury he sustained, then I'm not. The reason why I'm coming to the conclusion with Harden is because I'm actively seeing a potential decline with him, and I think that's a fair assessment to make at somebody who's going to be 33 years old in a couple of months. So I'm not. I don't even think that's a crazy conclusion to come to. But the other problem is that you're going to have to come. The other problem that you may have is that not only is Harden going to be able to sustain a potential top five caliber play of his try to keep that status for how long, but also is that even really enough to win a championship? Because the way that the Lakers won with AD and LeBron is that they not only were performing at that level or near that level in the regular season, but they also sustained that level in the postseason. And Harden
Facts.
Harden to gamble even on that is also pretty scary because then you have to gamble that he's going to be able to do something that, quite frankly, he's never done. He's never. I don't think Harden has ever went to a postseason run,
Facts.
especially a deep one,
what
and he played like a top five player in all three rounds of the playoffs he performed. He played in that year.
in Houston, he was on a team where Sam Decker was getting minutes in the playoffs, and he was carrying that team to conference finals in the Death March West, where the Warriors were. This whole
Okay,
he's a playoff
But
dropper
he
narrative doesn't
no,
make
uh,
no,
sense.
let's not.
it's not a narrative. It's a fact.
It's
He is a player.
facts. It's
It's a
facts.
fact. It's a fact. It's not a narrative. It is a fact. He's a playoff dropper, and it's fine if you want to go with the fact that he didn't have enough help around him, and that's the reason why. All understandable. Newsflash is going to be the exact same thing because outside of whatever we believe Maxi's going to be and Joel Embiid, he also is not going to have that much help, and he's going to be older. So it's going to be the
But
exact same situation.
all I would say is that even as we label James Harden a playoff dropper, the point is that prime James Harden is so great to where the drop off is like 28 points at 42%, which I mean, is that terrible for a playoff performer? No, but it doesn't compare to his regular season stats.
But the reason why the drop off is important to highlight is because he can still drop off into a credible player. I'm not saying he doesn't do that, but the reason why I highlight the drop off is because of the concept of is two players good enough? Because if you just have two players on your team, it's only good enough when both of those players can still perform at that level in the postseason. That's when it's on. That's when it's enough. So when LeBron and AD did it in 2020, they were performing at historic highs in the postseason for it to be enough for them to make it to the finals and win. So yes, Harden can drop off, and many stars drop off. But the drop off when you're on a team that is depending on you to consistently perform as a top five player, if Harden drops off from the fifth best player in the league or in the postseason to the tenth best player in the postseason, that can be the difference between you getting past the Bucks or not getting past the Bucks. That could definitely be the difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I personally I wouldn't bet on James Harden, but
I wouldn't either.
just arguing from that like point of view, because I know my team recently did it. You know, we went all in on LeBron James and Anthony Davis being great, and they were. And really, I mean, Anthony Davis at that point didn't have a ton of playoff experience. Like we saw him, he played great in that Blazers series, but it wasn't like a shitload of evidence that he would be able to sustain that throughout a whole playoffs, and he did. We
The
saw
difference
it
is
happen.
though,
But
AD
and
was
so
younger. AD was
oh yeah,
right in the heart
absolutely.
of his prime. and he was right smack dab in the heart of his prime, and the player profile is different than Harden.
But Harden is
So
also
I get what you're
it
saying though.
to me the and also just the one thing um to me Harden's game has never been based off of athleticism. He's always been a relatively slow,
Methodical.
but yeah,
Nah,
methodical. So
And
to
the
me,
rule
I
change.
think
And the
it
rule
it
change.
really has more to do with the injury than we give that credit for. Not even saying that if he gets healed that he'll be prime James Harden, but I do think that injury has taken a toll on him. And
Harden
some
wasn't a
athletes do
Westbrook
sustain the injury
athlete.
and never recover to the player. That's the reason why they're never the player. So that could be it.
Harden wasn't Ja or Russ or Wall or Rose, but Harden's athleticism definitely played a big part in how good of a player he was, and it goes to all about that first step. Harden's first step is nowhere near the same as it used to be, and that's just being honest and objective. Like assessing the game the proper way. Like his first step is nowhere near what it used to be. And that speaks to athleticism and just aging. When you age, like you get injured more, you become more injury prone, and your first step, your quickness, all of that, your all of those
Well, and what
um,
I would even throw into that,
little
so
skills they
he's
decline.
gotten older, so he's a step slower, and then the NBA changed those rules on him, and now he doesn't even get to the free throw line as
Man, the
frequently.
rule
So,
change is bogus. He gets to the free
so
throw line the same at the same rate. His free throws per game were like I think 0.2 or 0.3 off. Like that's nothing.
I want to go to Embiid MVP, and I'm kind of wrap it up a little bit after that. But Embiid MVP.
Um, I want to know how the Miami Heat was going to beat us because personally, I think they have the worst number one option on offense in Jimmy Butler, and Bam has not been putting up like the numbers he should be putting up against the Atlanta Hawks. So I just want to know like how are they going to beat us when we have like I'm not saying we're a championship contending team because we're probably going to beat the Celtics or the Bucks, but I do think we could have made the conference finals if we had Embiid healthy.
Well, I think collectively the defense would have been much more difficult to score against, especially from Harden. So if Harden's performing the way he was performing, which was not having the same burst, not being able to create separation as much as he used to, it would have been a lot of Embiid trying to find a way to score out of probably double teams, which he does. I mean, relatively well. Give him credit,
I
but
mean,
also trying to make sure that like the lineups on the floor was also like being able to like be fully functional lineups because I don't know if you're giving that many minutes to potentially Thigh if you're on the court with Harden, who's may not be as fast as he used to be, Thibault and Tobias Harris. I don't know how fluent of a scorer Embiid looks like in that setting, even if he is the biggest player on the court.
I do think the defense might not be like weaker than the Raptors, but I think they're a lot easier to score on because of less length compared to like Siakam, Boucher, Barnes, Trent, OG. Like you got Max Strus, Hero, Duncan Robinson out there. I think it'll be a lot easier to score than it be
Yeah,
against the
it's when
Raptors.
they go to that second unit. When they go to that second unit, they'll be able to exploit pick and rolls.
Yeah, I
And
feel like I feel like Reed will beat like the dog shot of what's the backup?
I don't know if y'all because the thing is again I'm not saying that I personally had Philly going to the conference finals, so it's not like I'm sitting here saying that Philly would have not beat the Miami Heat. The question would have been answered again: is Harden going to play well enough to justify us giving him the contract? And is a duo of Harden and Embiid going to be enough for us to compete for a championship? That was what was going to be answered this postseason run. But now that that's not going to be answered, then you're basically going to be making a very critical decision without having all of the data necessary to probably make that decision. And so you're going to more or less make that decision based off of who Harden probably once was rather than what he probably will be. And that's the scary part.
I think once Embiid comes back from concussion protocol, he plays. Honestly, he puts on the black mask and plays. I honestly
But
think that's what's going to happen.
but and I think he plays. But then if they let's say hypothetically speaking, he comes back in game 3 or 4, right? He plays, but y'all still lose, and it's while Embiid performs poorly. If that happens, then reasonably so, the excuse will be, oh well, Embiid wasn't 100%. So you still don't get the answer that you're looking for anyway. So it doesn't really matter. The answer that is needed to be, the question that needs to be answered just won't be answered this year. It just won't be. Christian,
Yeah, can
What's
you
up?
hear me?
Oh,
I don't know if both of y'all name is Christian, but I was talking to the guy who got the Embiid pick. The
Okay.
Embiid, I think that's Embiid and MJ.
Yeah. So like it hurts to say this, but what if like the Sixers do commit on Harden and Embiid and they move Tobias's contract, like who's to say they can't get good value for Maxi?
So you talking about trading for Maxi?
I
I
don't move
mean, because
Maxi.
they can't pay him if they decide to pay Harden and you know.
That's
Well,
the
they
only young
can. They
asset they
haven't
have. Is
If
confirmed it
they
yet.
quarterback.
trade Maxi, that would be a very dumb move because they're trading they're trading a young player who'd be making less money than Harden
Yeah,
to
that
keep
that
But
would
Harden.
not be.
that's
That
down
just
the
doesn't make
road.
sense. But like
But you got to
down the road,
remember,
wait. You're saying down the road, but like you guys are like personally giving Harden a lot of credit for playing inconsistent for the entire year. Like that's a real point. And with Harden's age, his injuries histories do not get better, especially a hamstring with basketball players. Like that's my only issue with that. Like, why would you even think to trade Maxi, the younger player who's coming into his own light?
Because he gets you more value.
But
Yeah,
if
nah,
he's the value you're saying he is, why not keep him and then move
you
Harden
can't
instead?
trade your young players.
Yeah,
Your
trading
young
Maxi might
assets, you
actually be a
can't do
worse
that.
decision. If the conclusion was we trading Maxi, that's and part of the reason why it's tough
They're
is because
unserious if they
you're
do
you're
that.
going to get less in return from Maxi just because he's making significantly less money. So Harden, if he does a sign and trade, it's the difference between moving $45 to $50 million for Harden, in contrast to moving probably like $15 to $20 million for Maxi. Like what you're going to get in return, even if the player's value in terms of their talent and potential varies, just the amount of return you're going to get for Harden with the amount of money he's getting paid will also, like, that right there will more than enough make up for it and probably address a lot of other concerns. Trading Maxi is, man, that'll be a
out of the question.
yeah, that'll be a bad. That's in every capacity. That's just a really really bad decision.
And then I'm not too much worried about his contract because he has to hit certain milestones to get really big money. So I'm not too much worried about super maxes and maxes and all that stuff for him because he has to hit certain milestones that I don't see him hitting. But he is an ascending player, and I wouldn't get rid of him. No, you don't do that.
Jay Wade,
yo.
what up, man?
So I have a question. So let's say I'm a Miami Heat fan. Let's say the Sixers do beat the Heat, and the Sixers wind up the third round, and they lose that round. Who do they put the blame towards to? Like, would it be half Embiid, Harden, and the coaching, or would it be straight out just Embiid and Harden?
I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't. I have to figure out what occurred. I don't know if there's any blame to go around because if Embiid is not 100%, it's just another season where they have to chalk it up to injuries, unfortunately. But I don't know if it's anything. And then even with Embiid out, I don't know because I'm not holding Harden to the standard that he's supposed to play like anywhere near close to his prime just for the sake of like trying to justify giving him a contract because when they pay him, it's under the concept that he's going to be playing around alongside Embiid anyway. So I'm not expecting that. This season doesn't really feel like a blame game season. This is a season where it's like damn, like it's just another opportunity that's like down the drain, unfortunately, which kind of fucking sucks, man. That sucks, bro.
And
I feel
one
sorry for Harden fans, man. I mean, for Philly fans and Harden fans too.
one thing I would say though is that like I do understand that there are legitimate questions as far as can a player at 32, 33 bounce back at that age, but like are we I think we have to acknowledge the advancement in medicine and science that we're seeing. Um, Kevin Durant tore his Achilles. Every other player that we've seen tear their Achilles was done. Kobe, my favorite player, Kobe was done after he tore his Achilles.
From
The
point to their
only other
careers.
one relatable was Dominique Wilkins, I believe. Isaiah Thomas was done. You have LeBron. We look at LeBron James is 38. He's 37. He just averaged 30. We look at Chris Paul. He's 36. He just had a perfect game. Like I, I think we do also have to acknowledge that we are starting to see evidence of the advancement of sports science and rehabilitation. I think I think there's evidence in that.
Uh,
I think
I think for the guys who really take care of their bodies, James Harden does not fall in that category, bro. And
But
I
Chris
I
Paul
really
was a
like
play. But what I'm saying is Chris
he
Paul
completely
has a
changed.
history of being injured himself in the
Nope,
playoffs.
nope, not the same. He completely changed his diet and went to like he made himself over. If you believe Harden will do that, cool. I for one am not taking that bet. Not doing it.
I agree. I'm not. It's a lot. It's a lot. And again, I think, man, even if we were to give Harden the benefit of the doubt that he's doing that, again, you're building a team where it's just going to be two players. It's going to be heavily dependent on Harden and Embiid, and potentially whatever Maxey is going to become playing that third role. Harden isn't dynamic enough on both sides of the floor, and I don't think Maxey will ever be a defender like to that level either. Like there's just it's so many things where it's like the
Yeah,
Lakers
and
got
then
away with it.
my question is like, okay, are are we gonna bet how good is Prime Maxi? How good of that type of player? How much value does that does that bet does that trump the bet of what if we get actual James Harden? Is Maxi ever gonna be as good as actual James Harden?
I think
No.
well no, not better, because even in the role that we're talking about, Maxi is still the third option. I think on every team that's like going to be competing, Maxi has a really good, like Maxi hitting the ceiling of being a quality third option in the NBA is a much more realistic bet than Harden reverting back to who he was, because realistically speaking, Maxi is already a really good third option in the NBA. Like he's
Right.
already meeting those expectations, and there's still potentially room to grow. The problem is that we're rolling a dice on if Harden is going to revert to who he once was. Is such a It's such a big gamble. It is a massive, monumental gamble at 33, signing a contract that will put him at 37, 38 years old, that will basically cap you into this identity of having a 2 to 3 man led team between Maxi, Harden, and Embiid. And without you having potentially the pieces to fill out the rest of the roster, it's just tough. It's a very tough scenario to put yourself into. And so if you're looking across the league and you potentially see other teams that may be interested in Harden and that can convince themselves that Harden is the player that they may need or want, or just flip him to another organization, I think that should be. I'm not saying that's the first option you run to, but it should be on the table and it should be taken very serious, especially if there's no signs of Harden.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to state my position again on the bet. I would not. I wouldn't bet on James Harden, me personally. But what I'm saying is, do I see like y'all are giving me all of the glass half empty scenarios, and I'm kind of giving you the glass half full. I'm just saying that I do see. I can. I would understand if they took the bet. Is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't do it myself, but if would I blame a franchise for trying to bet that you know if we have these actual these two players, who, when healthy, are legit top 5 players, I would bet on that most of the time. Not those two, but most of the time I would bet on that. And so I wouldn't blame them if they did. I wouldn't personally, but I wouldn't blame them if they did.
Let me see. I'm gonna try to get his two more people in. I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna get two more people in here. Uh, Dijon. I don't know what you got in your profile pic. I guess not. Duns.
Yo,
What up? What up?
I mean, yo, all I really wanted to say about the situation is that I for one don't even believe, even with a healthy Joel Embiid and whatever James Harden has left in the tank, they wasn't even gonna get the job done anyway. It's just, I mean, at this point, I feel like there's just too much competition in the East for a duel of whatever year James Harden is in, and injury prone Joel Embiid to make it to the finals anyway. I didn't really believe in that anyway, but this pretty much just proves it. Like, if we're being honest, some stars are just, their bodies are just not built for the playoffs. I mean, the whatever Joel Embiid has been injured how many times in the playoffs, and they've been eliminated a number of times before he even got injured. So I just don't have any faith in that duel, even if he's healthy. I still had Heat in like 6 or 7 just because of the defense. I mean, we've seen Harden going up against good defenses, especially in Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say in Houston because he was dominant in Houston, but, as we can see, he's far away from that now. So I just feel
I
like,
would just say though, like sometimes we do unfairly like label players because they do get injured for like when we see this play that Joel Embiid got injured on, the the dude cracked him with an elbow. Like, I don't think that has anything to do with how Embiid is built. Like, I think if you would have thrown most people in that situation,
well, so much talking
they
about
would have broke their face or whatever.
the facial injury. I'm more so talking about, maybe we could talk about the fractured finger or something like that. Just those little nicks that just hinder your play. I mean, as far as that goes, I feel like he's just gonna throw on the mask and keep playing. You know what I'm saying? He pretty much, he's self aware, so he knows that he does get injured and he's willing to play through it, which I give him high praise for, which can either come and bite him in the butt or not. We don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
players usually play through things. Like if you went back and um, saw the list of Allen Iverson's injuries in a season, it would be crazy, but he played. Same thing with Kobe. Like, people play through injuries, um, and people get hurt. Like, it's gonna happen. You
yeah,
play so many games, you're gonna get injured. Like,
yeah,
that's
but
why the championship thing really is, it's a lot of luck because your team has to stay healthy enough to win a championship.
it is. But at the same time, Joel Embiid hasn't even shown that he could stay healthy until. I mean, he hasn't even reached the finals yet. So, wait, wasn't he in? No, he didn't even reach the
Right,
Eastern
but
Conference
but
Finals.
neither
So
had Chris Paul, and he did it at 36 last year. Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
well,
crazier things are happening as we speak. The man just had a perfect game at 37.
Real
yeah,
talk. I have a question. Do
Yeah.
you legitimately feel that Harden would age the same way Chris Paul has?
I don't
I
think so.
wouldn't have betted that Chris Paul uh, would look like this at 37. I wouldn't have betted.
But
nah.
let's all right.
That's
Let's
that.
Efficiency
That
that
wasn't.
you
That
get
wasn't.
from
That
Chris
really
though.
wasn't my question. But are you saying that
Mm,
you could also like say that Harden could still be that player, and you're saying like it's up to you didn't believe Chris Paul could do it as well. So are you saying that Harden could?
I
What
don't
I'm
believe
saying
that.
is, I know I don't believe Harden could. But what I'm saying
Okay.
is, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he would be. That is all I'm saying.
I'm
I
gonna tell
think
you
it
why it
is.
is. I'm gonna tell you why it is. It all comes down to efficiency. Harden has never in his life And I get the true shooting percentage. I get all of that. But never in his life has he been as efficient as Chris Paul. And the way they pick their spots are totally different. They have two totally different games and player profiles. Chris is a big part of the reason why Chris is so effective in his late age. He always plays. He's always played through pick and roll and mid range. That is his game. That's how he plays basketball. Harden's profile is iso ball and long jump shots. It's not an aging game. That's not an aging game.
I
Like
would agree that he would have to change his game, but I what I would say is that he has diminished his own legacy and his own game, adjusting his game all the way to how he ran it with Mike D'Antoni. Because in previous years, when he had Kevin McHale as a coach, he would catch the ball in the mid post. He would he had a mid range game. He would go to a side step or a step back in the mid range post. Like he regressed, in my opinion, to playing that one way, whereas ISO at the top of the key, dribble, 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 and I'm either get to the step back or I have to get all the way to the cup because analytically that's how we're gonna play. Like he had more to his game early in his career if you really paid attention to him, and he regressed in my opinion with his versatility. So he would have to change his game to get back to those kind of numbers. If he stayed at what he's going to do right now, absolutely, I totally agree with
On that note, I gotta do have to bounce. I think that I want to say who's the gentleman who hosting that other room? Wes, I think you might know who it is. His
yeah,
name
it's
Jay or
facts
something
and
like that.
stats. Facts and stats. It's Ev, my
All
boy
right,
Ev. Yeah.
yeah, go. Y'all can go over there. I guess tell him low central, I guess. But my at the end of the day, I just want to say that I think that it's really it sucks if you're a Philly fan. I feel bad for you. I feel bad for Harden and Embiid because
Yep.
bro, it
Might
just
have to trade
it
Harden.
sucks. Face ass.
Bye.
Oh wait, my bad. C bands. I forgot. I brought you in here. Let me let you say something real quick. I guess not. I guess not.
Yo,
Uh,
Lo, I got a quick question for you.
all right, try to make it quick.
Who do you think won that Brooklyn 76ers trade?
I think Philly because I think that even with Harden aging, I think you still might get more out of him in another trade than you would ever get out of Ben Simmons. So no, I still think they won that trade. No cap. Even if they had to force themselves to trade it again, I think they would still get more out of Harden than it would be the other way around. That boy Ben Simmons, boy, he's so far removed from where he need to be. It's a damn shame.
Nah, Ben Simmons ready to play now. He 100% now. That's the game 7. He was 100%.
Oh man, that's and you know what's so crazy. That's the other problem is that hell, Embiid. I mean, not be Simmons got hurt, not even playing basketball. So fuck, I don't know what's going on that boy. I just say that
You
there,
know what's
there might
crazy?
there might be a team that can convince themselves that Harden is their final piece. I just think that if it's Philly, you have to be very careful because if you are going to cement yourself to that caliber of player, then you have to be with the understanding that like he will be good enough for me for the next 2 or 3 years. Because especially when we compare him to other players who are in similar situations, like the Phoenix Suns with Chris Paul, they also signed on CP3 on a contract that could potentially be questionable in another 2 or 3 years themselves. And because of that contract that they got him on, they also are going to deal with other financial problems like are they going to pay Cameron Johnson and are they going to pay DeAndre Ayton? So those are all like these are all things that teams do deal with, and a lot of times, unfortunately, the result is they're players that just end up walking and they don't get nothing for them because they just cross their fingers and hope that what they got is enough to win a championship, and sometimes it may not be. But the difference is that if you're Philly, you are at that situation right now where you have to make that decision and hope that you get a lot in return for Tobias to fill out the rest of the roster, so you're not just overly depending on on these type of on Harden and Embiid. And I guess the other thing is that I don't know nowadays with the supermax,
The Supermax is just more crippling on anybody's financial books than any other max contract has in any other time in NBA history. And it doesn't matter how much the salary cap goes up. It is a move that you're going to make. And I know they don't have to make it with Harden, but they already made it with Embiid. To go from having your salary cap go from like I want to say that old one used to be like 30 to 35% of your salary being taken upon one player to 40 to 45% of your salary cap being placed upon one player. For that amount of money all to be going to one player, you have to find a really great way to fill in the rest of the roster. And every team is not the Golden State Warriors. Every team is not the Boston Celtics. Every team is not the Milwaukee Bucks, where they've been able they hit big really, really early with players like Chris Middleton, where they were able to get him and he emerged, and same with Giannis. They got lucky with the Warriors because Curry was entering all-time great status while he was only getting paid $10 million. And you're not like man, what's the team? What's the team? Second team? But
Celtics.
you're not the Celtics where you got a whole bunch of young players all at one time, and you've been able to juggle around fucking Isaiah Thomas contract with Kyrie contract and then to Kemba's contract, and even then they fucked that up because Kemba didn't turn out to be the player that they were. But most teams are not the Boston Celtics where they get 2 to 3 quality players in the draft and able to build off of that for the foreseeable future. Most teams are not like that. Philadelphia was almost like that, and we saw who Ben Simmons was. So it's sounds simple, it sounds great, but in the long term, it might not work out. And that Supermax shit, bro, that shit fucks up a lot of things. I feel sorry for them, bro. I wish the best of luck for them. I thank y'all for coming out. Like I said, y'all can go to the room, and I'll see y'all later, man.
Yep.
Facts and stats, man.
And
Facts
that's
and
exactly
stats.
why the
Appreciate you,
Bulls
Lo.
need to trade Levine for Westbrook.
Oh.
Boston